Welcome to the F3 podcast,
where we talk food, football, and fantasy football.
And we're recording back at another episode of the F3 podcast.
You said that with such hesitancy.
I'm like, what are we doing today?
What is it? What day is it? Where are we?
Yeah, no, we're recording again.
Yes.
Now, how are you feeling?
A little less stressed.
Are you?
It's been about less than an hour since the draft is over, so that's good. I can start to decompress a little bit. The texts have been starting. The trade's probably happening very shortly, but it was good. It was good.
Yeah,
I can breathe.
You can breathe. Have you got a good team? This is what we're looking at.
I feel like I do.
Maybe I should explain this because everyone that's listening in right now. So it was the big draft today. Yes. So 16 rounds.
16 picks. Yes, that's right.
16 picks today. Yes. You've got a roster now of 16 players.
Yes, exactly. Which include 6 bench players, I believe. Yes, 6. Right. We changed our draft format a couple of years ago. As many people know, defense, just a generic defense, was included in draft picks. I'm still not sure if everybody has gotten away from that, but I know we got away from that a couple of years ago. So we are purely an offensive draft, which I think is the right choice.
So all the points come from the big players that make the big points and get the big yardage.
Exactly, which I think is, I don't know, I think personally is the right decision, because if the whole goal of fantasy football is to get your points and increase your points by trying to draft defensive, seems a little counterintuitive to that. So, I'm glad we went with the way that we did.
Did you? Good.
Yeah.
That's awesome, because I'm glad you finally got a team that's put together.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell your team, or are you just going to, what were your strategies going into this one?
Okay, so my strategy, and I know I've talked about this a couple of years ago, is I have always been a big believer. I know running backs usually are the ones to go first, wide receivers sometimes too. But for me, my strategy was, and I know I'm going to get teased a little bit about this, but going for quarterbacks, because I have always spoken about how good quarterbacks, and especially for fantasy, for points, I think was always a good strategy. And this was the year I walked the walk. So I went quarterback heavy. I got Mahomes, I have Stafford, I have Goff, I even have Russell Wilson on my bench. So that was my strategy this year, was to get some really, really good quarterbacks. I've got some good, quite a few running backs too, because I think that's always my second pick for points. Of course, they're going to get you a lot of points, a lot of touchdowns and things like that. I eased off the tight ends a little bit this year, and I've only got 2. Because I think overall they're maybe not as good in terms of your fantasy points. But
you think so?
Yeah, they get used in the NFL, of course, and they're really good on the short yardage gain. And, they do get their fair share of touchdowns. And, the people at tight end university is probably going to be screaming at me right now. But I think that's going to be my strategy this year. We'll see how it pans out.
Well, because you're definitely going through a different thought process when you're doing it. Because when you're picking players, you're going for points, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's not always about what team's going to win, right?
It doesn't, honestly, your team can lose and you could still win. So it's kind of a weird way of thinking, I guess. So purely you're in it for the points. It's purely for the points.
Right. So you're trying to get that. And I know there was a lot of times you were going, because there was a couple players I saw you go for, and they got picked a little quicker than you.
It's all part of fantasy.
And I get that, but then you're sort of going through your second lineups, and there was a bunch of one like, oh, well, he's playing with, this person, or he's on this line.
Absolutely.
And I'm like, this team's a running team, this one's a throwing team, like.
Yeah, and I think there's a bunch of factors outside of, who are your best players and who's going to get you the most points. Another variable, obviously, is who's your quarterback on that team, right? So if you're looking at a receiver, or you're comparing 2 receivers, there was a couple of situations where I was like, I don't want Aaron Rodgers as my, not my quarterback that I'd pick, but as my receiver's quarterback, because honestly I don't think he's got much left in him, so I don't want to pick a receiver that's on that team. That's one factor and one variable that goes into it. And another one, of course, which I may have, and may being the operative word, messed up just a little bit, because I did not did not, and this is a good rule of thumb, did not check my bye weeks. So I've got a couple of running backs and a couple of quarterbacks on the exact same bye week. So I realized that about 3/4 of the way through when we were drafting our bench player. So I grabbed a couple of extras, mostly quarterbacks.
So what you're saying next year is when you're going to have the game schedule beside you, so you know.
No, I mean the bye weeks are listed. I just didn't look. I'll be honest.
So it's all there.
I was getting a little confident at that point because I had some really good quarterbacks. And then I realized why I had some really good quarterbacks, because they were all out on week 8, apparently.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So the other thing you have to look about, and this is one, do you think this makes any difference about the time? Because you have a time clock when you're picking, right?
Yes, most fantasy drafts will have a time clock. So it varies, of course. Like we use Yahoo, which I know a lot of fantasy managers use. Yahoo's kind of like the default. You do have a clock, and you are limited by time. So I think that varies too. I think we've got 1.5 minutes per choice, per selection, just like the actual NFL draft.
Right. And do you think that plays into the fact that you actually like push your team members or make them maybe second guess themselves if you pick really quick, or if you drive them nuts by waiting till the last second before?
I like that second part of the strategy better. Is like I love going in confident, especially because before the draft opens, you can sort of pick your ideal team, and you can have some backup players that you've sort of starred or favorited. And when those go, that's my strategy. Is I'm kind of going over prepared, and
Right.
There's always variables at play because some players get picked depending on how you draft and where you draft. But I'm pretty confident in my choices, and I usually try and think at least 2 choices ahead. And even if those choices aren't available when it comes my draft turn, I have like kind of a backup strategy. So I think there's something to be said about kind of maybe mind games, like picking a player right away, or maybe just kind of stretching it out a little bit and making everybody else sweat. But
Right.
I mixed it up a bit.
All right.
Yeah.
So no one's really confident right now.
No one's confident. Nobody knows. And then, there's the big variable, of course, injuries, right?
Right.
So you can have the best of teams and 3 players go down. Your main quarterback goes down and you don't have a backup. So, all bets are off. It's the
That's
beginning
right.
of the NFL
Right.
year.
So now, if you were to pick one of the team, who put the worst pick?
Oh, that's a good question. I have to look through I've only looked through a couple of the teams. I know there were some questionable choices at quarterback. I wouldn't necessarily go with some of the picks. Some of the younger quarterbacks wouldn't be my first choice, but I see that nobody picked Aaron Rodgers, so that kind of makes me that makes me happy.
That didn't happen this year?
That did not happen. Although I can't remember who picked it, but there were some questionable picks at quarterback. Let's leave it at that. Yeah.
Sometimes you just have to support your person, right? So maybe play for your team. All right. So I guess this is where we start off, because we're getting into the launch for the F3, because we're going to start getting into talking about, well, now we've talked about fantasy.
Yes.
We're going to be able to start talking about some of the politics, some of the stuff that's happening on the field, and then get back into talking about some of the teams, where they're from, and more importantly,
the
food from those areas. So I've been sort of just kicking around, and I'm looking at, like, we've got so many great teams to pick from. Like, we got the Patriots, so we could do a lobster roll or clam chowder,
nice East
How about the
Coast vibe.
Ravens? We haven't got into there.
Ooh,
So
what's
like
a Baltimore food?
Baltimore? Well, maybe we could do a pit beef sandwich, or even a Maryland crab cakes. Let's think about that way. We could go Cleveland Browns.
What is Ohio known for their food?
Maybe a Polish boy sandwich, something along those ways.
Okay.
We can head down to Texas.
Oh, yeah,
we
let's
got
go to
Houston.
Texas.
We got a little, maybe some brisket barbecue. All sorts of great places. I've been sort of flying around here trying to think about what we can actually do. We haven't talked about the Los Angeles Chargers. We've done everyone else there.
It's true.
Yeah. So maybe the old Baja fish taco.
Yeah, that's
Yeah. Of course, there's like so many other great teams to talk about. I want to get into the Bears. Hey, let's get a little Italian beef sandwich, maybe a deep dish pizza. There's some great ones there. And then, of course, we can go all the way Green Bay Packers, maybe some fried cheese curds.
Some cheese.
Cheese curds is all the way. So anyways, we got lots of teams to talk about, lots of ideas. We may not pick any of those ones because it's all going to go to the spinny wheel.
I do miss the spinny wheel.
Yes.
Yeah.
Are you ready for the spinny wheel?
I am so ready.
I think this is time for the spinny wheel.
All right.
So you ready?
Let's do it. I'm ready.
Here we go.
Ready.
And
oh, it's slowed down a lot from last year. Jacksonville Jaguars.
Jacksonville Jaguars.
Wow.
Oh, nice call.
Yeah.
That will be a great one. Well, stay tuned for the next episode of the F3 podcast, where we're going to get in and talk a little bit about
more fantasy,
more food,
and of course, more football.